U.S.-backed group and its aid distribution that started and basically was a spectacular failure. We have that on the docket as well. I think it's time to move on to that part. Here's Dylan Saba saying, U.S. bombs, U.S. hunger plan. This is our genocide. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The U.S. is as responsible for the Gaza genocide as Israel was for the Sabra and Shatila massacres. Abso-freaking-lutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Dylan is 100% correct. You might have seen some of the images on the timeline earlier if you're on Twitter or if you're on, I don't know, freaking Blue Sky or whatever you're on. But Drop Site News covered it extensively as well. I'm going to obviously talk about that. Here is my take on it, at least. Mohammed Shahada, thousands of starved Gazans stormed the dystopian Israeli-American aid complex in Rafah after being forced to stand in endless queues and bake in the sun in a fenced concentration camp while being subjected to biometric surveillance. U.S. mercenaries and Israeli troops are opening fire. Israel's Khan reports U.S. mercenaries were likely the ones opening fire at the starved crowds, while reports from Gaza indicate Israeli troops also fired at the crowds. People were told to stand in queue all day while the mercenaries pick and choose who gets aid and who starves. This comes a day after two key figures that were a part of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the GHF, a philanthropic NGO that is directly backed by the Israeli government and directly backed by the American government and American State Department officials, that was based out of Switzerland, was like the two key figures that actually resigned, including the main guy, Jake Wood, Marine sniper turned mercenary, U.S. mercenary, said, "This plan ain't gonna work. It's a bridge too far for me." He had resigned a day prior. Now, of course, I said it didn't take 100 years to get back to this stage of fascism, as you can see right here. Identical. Literally identical. Almost one-to-one comparison. What are we doing? What the hell is going on? How do people not see this? How? Instead of allowing aid to be let into the strip, we are doing this shit. Incredible. Israel's Khan reports the U.S. mercenaries were likely the ones opening fire. Israel's Channel 12 highlights and reports that an Israeli helicopter began firing at the starved crowd while the American mercenaries ran away. Palestinian report, chaos in the center of the division. Palestinian report, chaos in the center of the division. Thousands of Gazans broke into the humanitarian aid complex. As the new aid distribution plan in Gaza Strip was launched, it was reported that the Palestinian mob broke through the fences of the compound in Tel al-Sultan, and attacked the humanitarian equipment. It was also reported that IDF helicopters opened fire and at the American company's employees withdrew from the scene. At this stage, there is no verification of the claim. Thousands of Gazans have already arrived to receive food packages, some of them Israeli made. That's the other side of the story, by the way. Never let a fucking crisis go to waste. You know what they're selling? Or not selling, but you know who gets to make money off of this fucking genocide? Israeli companies. That's right. The aid that, like, we're spending money here in America to fundraise, and then these initiatives are going, they have to go through Israel. No other way to let aid in, okay? And the food is still coming from Israeli producers. Thousands of Gazans have already arrived to receive food packages, some of them Israeli made. Hamas has also begun distributing free food in order to sabotage the distribution. Hamas has begun distributing free food in order to sabotage the distribution. Villain shit. You're a villain for writing that. Gaza is the 2025 version of a concentration camp. Tens of thousands starved for 86 days. Then came aid, a chaotic, humiliating spectacle wrapped in barbed wire and guarded by American mercs. Even they fled when desperation breached the fence. This is also part of the reason why you can't have sterile zones where aid distribution is happening in one area. You can't package millions of people into 25% of the strip when Gaza already, before October 7, was an open-air prison that was one of the most densely populated areas on the fucking planet. And then having that densely populated area and all of the population that has been starved get forced into two specific aid zones is ridiculous. There is a reason why the United Nations was like, we don't want anything to do with this. This is ridiculous. Y'all are fucking insane. They are making a smaller concentration camp inside of a concentration camp. Thousands of people starving for months, crammed together and treated inhumanely. And do watch the American mercenary perched on high, waving like he's at a concert. The image is truly dystopian mix of cruelty and performance, unbelievable but fully intentional. How's the crash out coming, bud? Oh, Jesus Christ. Dude, look at this. If you see images like this, okay? If you see images like this and you go, wow, I can't believe this person is very frustrated watching the fucking literal Holocaust unfold in 2025 in a post-Holocaust universe, right? Where we know these things are completely unacceptable. If you look at this and go, wow, lol, you're crashing out, you're just a fucking Nazi, you know? You are no different. You are no different than a Nazi. It's shocking. And I'm not even being like, I'm not even like that excited, right? In my commentary here, I feel like it's very reasonable. And you still look at like any sort of disgust at this image as simply crashing out, you know, then you are not a human being, you know? You're just not like, you are not a human being at all. You are flexing your indifference to unlimited cruelty. It is ridiculous. Utterly depraved. This wasn't humanitarian relief. It was a military-backed PR stunt. No system. 15-kilometer walks. Yeah, that's the other side of this. They made them walk 15 kilometers. Zero transport. Detainees mid-distribution. One food parcel last 2 days. This is an aid. It's humiliation designed solely for optics, not survival. This is damning. It confirms what everyone already knows. This is in humanitarian aid. It's humiliation theater, a stage performance to tick boxes, claim success, and justify continued siege, all under military protection. The Geneva Conventions obviously prohibit perfidy, a war crime that includes combatants impersonating aid workers. In Rafah, American mercenaries posed as humanitarians, luring starving civilians into a military control zone with no real aid system. That is not aid. It is a war crime. They made Palestinians, after bombing them, bombing their homes, and then bombing their tents, they made those Palestinians walk 15 kilometers, okay, 7.5 miles to get to this area where aid was distributed, aid in air quotes, was distributed by the very same factions that are bombing them. And in the process of quote unquote aid distribution, after starving them for 9 miles, after starving them for 86 days, they started detaining people on the line. And of course, predictably, chaos broke out. I've been covering this I've been covering the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation since we found out that this was the plan, talking about exactly what was going to happen. Okay? Talking about exactly what was going to happen. That what happened here is a more restrained version of what should have most likely happened. It is crazy. If the photos coming out of Gaza of Palestinians crammed into cages to get scraps and crumbs of food don't remind you of the Holocaust, that's because you haven't seen very many photos of the Nazi genocide during World War II. It is quite literally a 1-to-1. Yeah. As the Israeli aid scheme staffed by U.S. mercenaries begins in Gaza, there's already a report of a Palestinian being kidnapped when he went to get one of the small boxes of food. His family says he went to the Muraj Crossing Aid Distribution Center. To our shock, he called us under threat from Israeli intelligence officers demanding information about one of our relatives with whom we've had no contact since the beginning of the war. When we were unable to provide the information the army requested, communication was cut off, and we were later informed that he was transferred to a detention center. He is now considered missing. Every single person in Gaza is treated like an enemy combatant. Every single one. Okay? The Israeli military does not make an exception between like civilians. The Israeli military certainly does not make an exception for people who are even like politically involved with the civil governance and civil affairs. They are actively targeting people who are responsible for trash collection or responsible for policing, responsible for like they're killing the agriculture ministers and stuff, and then saying we killed another high-profile Hamas target. Okay? They're killing journalists and then saying, well, this person was photographed next to Yahya Sinwar, so obviously he is also Hamas. They're killing children. And they're not even hiding it. They're openly doing it in display of the rest of the planet. And understandably, this has created a lot of resentment towards Israel. Israel has become a pariah state in even the Western world. It was already a pariah state for the global South. Now, even Western countries, the populations of Western countries see this horrifying picture, okay? And they also develop unimaginable resentment, understandable resentment, because fuck Israel. Who wouldn't resent this? Like I say, if Tim Dillon is defending it, no, dude, shut up. He was being sarcastic. Oh my God, you're so stupid. I'm not having this conversation any longer. What the fuck?
American and Israeli-backed aid supply group says it's started operations in Gaza, delivering truckloads of food to so-called secure distribution sites. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which uses armed American security contractors, aims to bypass the United Nations as the major aid supplier to Palestinians. It's already...
Oh, here, there's also this. UN experts express alarm at 2 new Israeli terrorism laws that permit life imprisonment for 12-year-olds and arbitrary suspension of child welfare payments, violating the human rights of Palestinian children. I mean, they already have a process where, like, if someone has done like a knife attack or something in the West Bank, okay, against a member of the Israeli military, or even like a citizen, civilian, settler, whatever, right? They will go back and they will destroy the homes. They will literally displace the entire family of the person that engaged. Like, they already do collective punishment with regular frequency. Okay? Which is, again, demonic. It's insane. Instead of like prosecuting the individual, which, by the way, ironically enough, the Palestinians have a right to resist in the West Bank, resist to the illegal occupation of the West Bank, for the record. But even within this like insane legal structure that they've designed for themselves with military tribunals and whatnot, the very fact that they punish the entire fucking lineage is psychotic. And now on top of that, they've pushed this new law through where 12-year-olds can get life imprisonment. 12-year-olds. Yeah, only democracy in the Middle East.
Already seen its own executive director resign in protest amid mounting concerns over the project. The foundation says it delivered truckloads of food to its secure sites on Monday, where distribution began to people in Gaza, although it isn't saying how many trucks were involved. The project has been controversial, seen by critics as politicising and militarising aid and using food distribution to cattle Palestinians into diminishingly smaller areas, with selective distribution used to starve out Israel's adversaries. The foundation rejects the criticism, saying its operations conform to the humanitarian principle of neutrality. Let's go live now to our Middle East correspondent.
No, it doesn't. No, it does not. Aid to civilians in a theater of war cannot be given by enemy combatants. It cannot have any military use. It is illegal. That is literally illegal. Okay? The idea that you can use aid for military purpose is insane. But so is doing a genocide. Obviously, it is the worst crime that a state can commit. There is no crime worse than ethnic cleansing.
Correspondent Yulan Nell. And Yulan, this new aid operation is underway. Do we have any more information about how it's going?
We haven't heard any more today about aid reaching these new secure hubs, as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation refers to them. There are 4. We're expecting initially 3 of them in the south of Gaza, 1 in the center. And the foundation is insisting that it's...
Bro, the U.S. got away with indigenous genocide, so Israel will do the exact same? Yeah, there's a difference, though. Okay? 1, that is, again, an unacceptable crime. It is the crime of all crimes. Okay? It is the worst crime of all time. Having said that, there was no internet. There was no global web of interconnected human beings. There was no like deep entanglement with this process. Okay? There is no comparison. Like in most circumstances, you don't have, like we have, until this very moment, we have never had a live streamed Holocaust where the belligerent party, the one doing the live streamed Holocaust, is only able to do so because of the unlimited support it gets from Western nations, but especially the United States of America. You are comparing a totally different time frame, not to justify that, which is still, again, unjustifiable. And there was plenty of horrible things that the Americans did at the time, the settlers did at the time, parading scalps and decapitated skulls of the indigenous population, just horrible, monstrous things. But once again, making comparisons to the past like this also, I think, is a dangerous predicament, because like we must do everything we possibly can to stop it from happening. Otherwise, what lessons did we learn from the genocides of the past? What lessons did we learn? Like, this is the reason why I always talk about, like, the entire field of Holocaust studies are there so that we understand exactly how a society can be moved to get to that point in an effort to never allow it to happen again. Okay, that's the basis for never again. And many people now unironically say never again just means for Jews, no one else. Never again just means like no more Holocaust and nothing else. It's crazy. That was the Kahana's position. And now it's become a commonplace perspective in Israeli society.
planning to reach more than 1 million Palestinians within the next week. So that would be half of the population of Gaza. All that we saw so far in a couple of official photographs that were put out, the most I could count was about a dozen men, apparently Palestinian, carrying away boxes. And we saw also some lorries with boxes on them from a small US based NGO that had been transported into the Gaza Strip. Now, the UN and most UN agencies that have been working on the Gaza humanitarian crisis have been refusing to work with this newly created foundation. They see it as both unethical and unworkable, and they've accused Israel of using food as a weapon and also using it as bait to try to fit in with the military strategy of forcing Palestinians in Gaza to move to the south. And, you know, it's not clear at the moment whether this will be effective. Israel says that a new system is urgently needed to stop Hamas from stealing supplies for its own benefit. And that's something that the UN has said is not happening in a meaningful way. At the same time, we've been hearing from the UN's Humanitarian Office some figures suggesting that despite Israel's easing of the blockade, the total blockade imposed on Gaza for 11 weeks, saying this was to pressure Hamas, all we've seen in the past week or so.
Also today, the occupation announced a seizure of approximately 7 million shekels in cash and the confiscation of gold worth 6.2 million shekels were seized, and 30 citizens were arrested during a raid on exchange and gold shops today in the West Bank. Yeah, they're just like, dude, again, Nazi shit. They're robbing the Palestinians blind with the limited means that the Palestinians already have in occupied territory. They're stealing their clothes. They're wearing their clothes. They're wearing the clothes of the women in the homes that they have fucking displaced the Palestinians from.
Of lorries being allowed to return back to Gaza is about 190 lorry loads, mainly of food, going in. And we're hearing, of course, that distribution is very difficult with people just so desperate on the ground.
And Yolande, in the meantime,
it's just such freak shit, dude. It is especially freak-like when, like, so close in your history do you have immediate relatives that were victim to this exact same design, like one-to-one, verbatim, identical design in the fucking Holocaust. To turn around and do it not 100 years after is psychotic. But then again, 1948 was immediately after World War II, was immediately after the Holocaust. The practice of destroying the houses of an attacker's family in the West Bank is so judicially infamous because it was challenged in the Supreme Court by Palestinian rights organizations. After all, the practice was only applied to Palestinians and never to Jewish murderers. Judge Solberg, a far-right settler on the court, wrote in the majority opinion, "It is permissible to expect ethnic enforcement because Jews don't need the deterrence." More so that, yeah, we don't want to deter the Jews from doing it. We only want the Palestinians to get this, like, extraordinary deterrence measure. Yeah. This is why people say the Nakba never ended, by the way. I mean, this is like 1948. This is the exact same shit. It has never stopped. It is also being reported the main picture going around with men carrying boxes are surprisingly linked to the criminal Yasser Abu Shabab gang. You in the chat may remember me bringing them up multiple times because they're the same gang that has been working with the occupation to steal aid. I know I covered that extensively yesterday when I was talking about like Israel's depraved starvation techniques and Israel's deliberate attempts of destabilizing aid delivery at the point of delivery as well. They have ISIS affiliate criminal gangs in the fucking Gaza Strip, literally protected by Israeli drones, go up to aid distribution and cause chaos with weapons that they got from the Israeli occupying force, with gear that they're wearing from the Israeli occupying force. The Israeli occupying force is allowing an ISIS affiliate gang leader to literally harass truck drivers and extort them after they enter the Gaza Strip in areas that are red zones, where if you are a Palestinian, Israel automatically kills you. Except for these ISIS affiliates that are allowed to operate in those red zones. With the exception of these ISIS affiliates, no Palestinian is allowed to enter these red zones. Otherwise, they will get fucking lasered by an Israeli drone. It is shocking.
And there's also been another development, a missile attack on Israel by the Houthis in Yemen.
That's right. Sirens went off earlier today, and that's the fourth time in 5 days that that's happened. The Israeli military saying that it shot down a missile and another projectile that were launched separately from Yemen. We've had the Houthis saying that they are acting in solidarity with the Palestinians, although they have agreed with the US to stop their attacks on ships passing in waters going close to Yemen. And, you know, Israel has acted, it's attacked Yemen repeatedly, but we have not seen these strikes stopping. It's 3 weeks ago that Israel hit the main airport in Sana'a, killing...
Yeah. Yemen is the only country in the region that is willing to apply pressure to Israel, military pressure to Israel, as it's doing a fucking genocide. Go ahead. Yell at me and say I'm, pro-terrorism all day, every day. That's it. That's what the Ansar Allah movement is doing. People will say, oh, it is because they were unpopular, or the Houthis were unpopular. They're doing this for popularity amongst the, amongst the region. Okay. A lesson that maybe other Arab leadership should take note of. Iran or Yemen? What? Iran or Yemen should clap Yasser Abu Shabat and his fellow traitorous scumfucks? They can't. There's nothing that they can do.
Israel had said it wanted to control the way aid got to Palestinians in Gaza from hubs like this one in the far south. Day one of that plan didn't survive contact with reality. The reality of a population Israel had denied aid since the start of March. Initially, there'd been reluctance to come here. The process included biometric measurement. Hamas had urged resistance against what it called...
Speaking of straight up Nazi shit, here's a statement from Benjamin Netanyahu. I know, I have it right here. I'm going to pull it up. Here's what he said. There's no famine in Gaza. We arrested thousands of civilians to ensure they are not fighters and photographed them naked and showed no signs of hunger. In fact, they don't even exercise. That's what he says here. Every part of this process is deliberately humiliating, for the record, okay? He says there's no famine in Gaza because we arrested thousands of civilians to ensure they are not fighters and photographed them naked, and they showed no signs of hunger. In fact, they don't even exercise. That is a deliberate attempt to ritualistically humiliate the fucking entire Palestinian population. I deleted my Gmail YouTube account and I go on YouTube to see League vids and up pops a video against you. It's just so weird. This is associated to gamer vids. Yes, gamers, at least like gamer-based content creators have horrifying politics. Gamers themselves might not have horrifying politics, but the content creators that are gamer adjacent, that don't even like video games in general, that actually despise video games in general, have horribly reactionary politics. Anyway, let's keep going.
Called an Israeli intelligence operation. Israel has denied that, and in any case, soon enough, any idea of control was evaporating.
People stormed the place and stole everything. The Americans started shooting, then the Israelis.
more than 20 injured, and then a tank climbed the hill and started shooting.
Each box is supposed to contain enough for nearly 60 meals, prompting some disbelief today. This man carrying the contents in his T-shirt after his box broke.
I saw people running there. I decided to go too. People said it was scary. I didn't care. It was dangerous or not. I was going to go. I want to feed my children.
Earlier today, the Israeli military proudly displayed the operation on social media, prepared and ready, so they said, to deliver aid. The plan had been for nominated family representatives to collect food from the US and Israeli-backed, Swiss-based Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The army said it would stop.
Opposition leader straight up fucking said that this was the GHF was being funded by Israel too.
Hamas looting the aid, something aid agencies said was not happening at any scale to begin with.
We're standing here in this logistical area that the IDF built and will be run by a third party that will give the people of Gaza the aid directly. Every day, thousands of Gazans will be able to come here, reach this third party, and get the aid directly.
For weeks, that idea had been heavily criticized by the UN and other aid agencies as unworkable and politicized.
Fucking Nazi.
The location of the 4 hubs established.
How does this footage get leaked? Do the Palestinians have access to the internet? Yes. They do.
So far, 3 in the far south, 1 in the middle of the territory, also decried for enforcing further displacement. The UN's aid chief, Tom Fletcher, said it would see starvation used as a bargaining chip.
You starve people for over 2 months now, and then you allow a trickle of aid, a trickle of food in, and you ask them to go to Rafah, where people have to walk for miles and miles in order to get a food parcel. Is this a viable solution? This is a humiliation.
On Sunday, the executive director of Gaza Humanitarian Foundation resigned, saying it wouldn't be able to adhere to principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality and independence. And while established aid mechanisms operate at restricted levels, everywhere evidence of the need for them.
Even when they bring aid, nothing reaches us. As you can see, we're here like stray dogs collecting food from the trash. I swear, this is our life day to day. We collect food every day from the garbage. If we don't gather anything, then we don't eat.
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation blamed Hamas blockages and the volume of people for the chaos today, saying it had distributed 8,000 boxes and would be open again tomorrow. A UN spokesman called the images heartbreaking, saying it had a detailed, operationally sound aid plan ready to supply a desperate population.
Harry Fawcett reporting there. Well, Sam Rose works for the UN Relief and Works Agency, where he's the director of UNRWA Affairs in Gaza, and he joins us now live from Oxford. Sam Rose, I mean, absolutely desperate scenes coming out of Gaza again today, at a time when there should be at least some good news with food getting in. What's gone wrong here?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, this is so distressing. I mean, we've seen distressing and heartbreaking scenes for the past 20 months, and this tops many of those. What's gone wrong? Everything has gone wrong. It gives me no pleasure to say that, but everything we said about why this mechanism would not work and should not be put in place, we've witnessed today. The complete humiliation and dehumanization of a hungry, scared, injured, exhausted population, the corralling of humans into what can only be described as cattle pens in Rafah, massive overcrowding, no supply to meet the demand, no proper distribution networks.
Israel are trying to legitimize the ISIS-linked group in Rafah now. A group called the Counterterrorism Apparatus, led by Yasser Abu Shabab and operating under IDF protection in Rafah's Yargun Palace, released photos from the local aid center claiming Gazans are receiving assistance. Abu Shabab commands an armed militia backed by both the Palestinian Authority and Israel, made up of around 150 fighters, mostly former PA members, and based in Rafah's Netzarim neighborhood. They secure convoys along the Morag axis and conduct advanced patrols ahead of IDF movements to expose resistance operatives effectively aiding Israel in its war against Hamas. The group coordinates with Israeli and American officials, and critics claim the role in aid distribution is a part of the broader plan to pave the way for mass displacement. Sick, man. I love having ISIS affiliates fucking take up power in every part of the region. Awesome. Yes, Elias Rodriguez, the embassy staff shooter, was a self-proclaimed Maoist third worldist. I know. What? Is this too soon to cover? I'm literally covering it right now. That's what I'm covering currently.
Harrowing, and it's heartbreaking, and it was completely avoidable, and it is completely avoidable if we're allowed to do our work.
I mean, is it possible that this just is an illustration of...
Bro, if you would have said in 2012 that the U.S. and Israel and an ISIS-backed group teamed up, I would have called bullshit. Why would that be bullshit? Who do you think was most responsible for the formation of ISIS? Doesn't it surprise you at all that ISIS, that's supposed to be like ISIS is this like rabid fucking band of brigands, okay? And yet Israel is right there, and they never fucking attack Israel. As a matter of fact, they cooperate and coordinate with Israel, as you are seeing right here. Interesting. Maybe you'll also be shocked to find out that, for example, Al-Qaeda in Yemen were directly receiving American weapons that were being shipped off to Saudi Arabia. Isn't that interesting? Al-Qaeda, the guys who did, remember 9/11? The guys who did 9/11, we were arming them in Yemen. What does ISIS do? Like, what's the goal for them? I mean, they're a bunch of fucking rabid freaks that you can sick on whichever group you choose to destabilize. You are watching what these guys do. You are watching them. It's for control. Because at the end of the day, America does not care about who they align with. They will cooperate with anyone and everyone. They will farm. They will send weapons to anyone and everyone. The Mujahideen groups were armed and radicalized in the buildup to, during the Afghan Civil War, the buildup to the USSR invasion, and certainly after the USSR invasion. Some of those guys became Al-Qaeda. Some of those guys became the Taliban. Not Al-Qaeda, sorry. The Taliban. These were all different factions that were all considered the Mujahideen. They were already the Taliban. The U.S. supports socialist revolutionaries and anarchist revolutionaries in Syria, or supported socialist and anarchist revolutionaries in Syria for the longest fucking time. What do you think the YPG is? They don't care. As long as it causes chaos and beefs up sectarian infighting, there is value in that. And once they're done, they discard them. Sometimes the groups that they're done with will then end up will sometimes turn around and use the weapons and training that they got from the United States against the United States. This is the most consistent American foreign policy. This is precisely what happens over and over again. Whether it be blowback in the form of 9/11 or any other instance of violence in the region turning on the United States of America sometimes.
of people who are starving. You say, you know, the supply didn't meet demand. Perhaps over the next few days and weeks it will, because many people would say it doesn't matter where the aid comes from, who delivers it, as long as it gets in there.
Well, the United Nations showed during the ceasefire that we have the ability to deliver aid safely, at scale, to reach people where they are. This is not what happened today, and it's not what will happen over the course of the 3 weeks for a modality such as this, whereas people are forced to go to certain locations to pick up a box of poultry food items. Yes, they need food, but they do not need food to be distributed in this way. How are the sick, the elderly, the wounded, the infirm supposed to make their ways to these aid centres? How are these people supposed to get the services that they need to go alongside this food? We have tens of thousands, over 100,000 people have been injured in this conflict. How are they supposed to get the food and get the service that we need? And we have no time to wait. The population is on the verge of famine, on the verge of starvation. In UNRWA, my organization, we have the largest uninterrupted UN food operation anywhere on the planet that has functioned successfully for 75 years uninterrupted. We, the World Food Programme and others, we have the supplies on the border kilometres away. And let us get them in and let us distribute to people where they are.
You will be familiar with the argument from the Israeli government, which said a new system of delivering aid was needed because...
No, it wasn't. It's only needed because you want to continue starving the Palestinian population, and you want to use aid distribution in direct violation of international laws and rules of combat to make military use out of aid distribution. That's the whole point. Israel is also responsible for the limited aid distribution to begin with. Palestinians in the Negev found bags of flour sent from Turkey to Gaza thrown in the trash. I mean, it's not surprising. I don't understand how any journalist worth their salt, any journalist who's not even embarrassed to maintain the moniker of journalist, is still treating what Israel says with sincerity. You are the biggest fucking dupe of all time. You are the biggest dumbass of all time. Or you're also a willing participant in the genocide of Palestinians. That's it. Like, there has never been a moment where you should have ever trusted what the Israeli government is saying on anything. If you know anything about the Israeli government's track record, of course you're not going to trust the Israeli government. Like, what are we talking about? You shouldn't even trust the American government or any government or the Chinese government or the Russian government. Okay, governments lie all the time. But with Israel, the Israeli government is particularly bad at lying. They lie with the intensity of an entity that never gets checked. Because it's true. They do. They never get checked. There's never accountability for Israel. So, of course, they get away with lying, and they consistently lie in the silliest ways possible. If the Israeli government told me it was raining outside, I would know 100% that it's the sunniest day I've ever experienced. Okay? I was about to experience the sunniest day of all time. If they say anything, it's most likely the exact opposite. I think it was very clear ever since the American pier was built that the distribution of aid would eventually become a facade for military occupation of land. Now tight lines are surrounded by countless troops, shooting anyone who deviates even slightly. I guess under this regime, there's less need for subtlety. Yeah. Genuine question. If Trump wants to end these wars, why does he threaten American military involvement against the aggressors in both major conflicts? He really doesn't care about diplomacy, rules, or his approval. He can't entertain military intervention in Russia because that's nuclear holocaust. But he doesn't even have to entertain military or threaten military intervention in Israel. He just needs to tell Israel to stop. It's that simple. I know it sounds insane. But just as Joe Biden could have, Donald Trump can easily say, it's over, it's done, pack it up. That is the amount of power that America has. That is the amount of control the United States of America has over Israel. Everything that Israel does, you must understand, everything that Israel does is being done with the go-ahead of every single American politician, okay? Can he do that without Congress approval? Wow, that's really funny. First of all, yes. The answer is fucking yes. Throughout American history, many American leaders, from Ronald Reagan to George H.W. Bush to Joe Biden himself in 2021, have made one singular phone call that ended Israeli sieges, Israeli occupations. One phone call. That's all it has taken. So no, for this in particular, they don't need congressional approval. As a matter of fact, there is already pre-existing laws that make it illegal for America to ship arms to Israel. We are just not following the laws that we have in the books. That's number one. And number two, when the fuck has Donald Trump ever listened to congressional approval anyway? Yes, Ronald Reagan did that as well. He called what Israel was doing a Holocaust, and he was right. And what Israel is doing right now is also a Holocaust.
As they have consistently claimed, Hamas are stealing the aid. What's your response to that?
The response is we've seen no evidence of this, neither myself.
Dude, why don't you tell Hamas to stop, though? Dude, first of all, dude. I love how stupid these guys are, okay? Don't ban guys like this because they are hilarious. What kind of fucking influence do I have over Hamas? Do you think I have a direct dial-up to Abu Ubaidah? I'm going to be like, yo, Abu, stop. Also, he's going to, in the phone call that we're having, okay, he's going to be like, stop what? The genocide of my people? Like, what are they supposed to stop? And if your answer to that, if your retort to that is, release the hostages, well, I'll have you know, they have tried. Yeah, I'm going to be like, Abu, baby, stop this. And he's going to be like, Hasan, I love you. You are handsomely paid propagandist in the West. Okay? I love you. I love your content. I think you should game more. That's what Abu's going to say. Okay? But I think you're a little off base on this. Conversation between me and Abu Ubaidah. He's going to be like, listen, I think you're a little off base on this because we have tried to release all the hostages and Israel refuses to negotiate with us and consistently does the genocide that you are watching. Okay? So I'm not exactly aware of like what they should be stopping.
My 12,000 staff, the entire humanitarian community in Gaza, none of us have seen any evidence of this. We have absolutely nothing to hide. We ask repeatedly for this evidence. Our programs, our distribution mechanisms have been assessed and evaluated independently over decades, and there's been no evidence for any of this. Show us the evidence and let the journalists in. If the United Nations are constantly decried, constantly criticized for what we're saying, then let international press into Gaza to see the situation for themselves. Okay. That's what I would say.
Briefly, if you would, you know that the man who headed up this group has now resigned after just 2 months. He says the foundation cannot adhere to the humanitarian principles of humanity and neutrality. What happens now in terms of getting aid in? Should the foundation keep going in tandem with the work that you're doing?
I mean, we've seen what happens if it keeps going. Just by calling something humanitarian.
Why doesn't Hamas do anything about its PR? Like, why doesn't, like, have them clear their name more often? Brother, what are you talking about? It is literally virtually illegal in many places to even recognize Hamas as anything but a group of like rapist barbarians. Is this satire? What PR? They already do that. Hamas and Hamas officials, both on the civil affairs side and even Al-Qassam Brigade side, are very in tune. They are very in tune with the optics. They are very aware of it. It doesn't matter. Most people think all Arabs and all Palestinians and all Muslims are rapist, barbaric monsters that are basically just a parasitic force that then comes into Western countries. Have Abu Ubaidah say, no, we don't steal food. First of all, here's how I know your demands are stupid. They already do that. What are you talking about? You think anybody fucking believes what they have to say? What are you, crazy? They're paying you, right? Maybe you can get some more influencers on board, custom sick music videos or something. You just proved exactly like they do. They release statements all the time. Not a single major publication ever actually entertains their statements. They don't even talk about their statements. Why do you think everyone calls me a fucking terrorism supporter that must be banned and also possibly jailed? What do you think is going on? Why do you think people's immediate reaction to my commentary, my coverage over this, is you need to be banned and you need to be killed potentially, or at the very least go to jail permanently for the material support that you're offering to terror groups? That's what the average Westerner's perspective is when someone says, hey, these are normal human beings, for the record, and they're being fucking slaughtered ruthlessly. And it serves us well to hear their side of this genocide as well, considering that they are on the side of they're on the receiving end. Did the U.S. press report Viet Cong statements? This is equally one-sided. Maybe you can find something on foreign press. Dropsite is one of the only investigative reporting outlets that hasn't been criminally prosecuted yet, to some degree, that is offering coverage. The other sites, the other groups that actually will cover Hamas statements and cover this genocide from the perspective of the people being genocided is Electronic Intifada, which has literally had not one, but two of its journalists get raided by the British government, okay? And the other website is The Cradle, which once again also had a raid conducted on one of the journalists at The Cradle. Dropsite, as it stands, is the only fucking, because they're based in America and America still has like some semblance of free speech, and because a lot of the journalists are not in America at the moment. Yeah, Ali for Electronic Intifada got detained in Sweden, but I think he's been released. What about Zeteo? As far as I know, Zeteo has no direct access to any membership of Hamas, and I don't know if they cover. I don't know if they cover the. I mean, they do cover the genocide from the perspective of the people being genocided for sure, myself included. In any case, there are literal legal repercussions for doing this. As it stands, it is illegal for the government to take legal to issue legal repercussions to people like myself, but that might change. It's very obvious that the American government wants to change that. Here is read EU sanctions Red Media founder for covering Germany's pro-Palestine crackdown. The accusations used to sanction Red read like an act of revenge by German state for exposing its own complicity. Red is another outlet. Hussein Doğru, an AFA media which operates Red, citing their coverage of Germany's pro-Palestine protests, which the council claims supports Russia. Minor correction, Ali Abu Nima was arrested and held in Switzerland, not Sweden. Yeah. At Chatter, who mentioned the VC, there were over 600 accredited journalists in Vietnam by 1968. Israel lets nobody in. I mean, there is that element too. German media politicians and journalists have begun their whitewashing campaign 1 year and 9 months. They supported genocide and refused to name it. Now they use the word genocide, so one day they can claim we were always against it. You are all complicit, says Hussein Doğru. It's interesting because, like, on the one hand, they're doing stuff like this, right? And they are trying to make it basically illegal to cover this shit. But on the other hand, now, because the tides have changed and it's virtually impossible for them to hide the truth, and the population is not oblivious to the death and destruction, they're also all of a sudden coming to that conclusion. Oh, yeah, I guess it is a genocide. Oops. Sorry, we fucking raided your home, Asa Winstanley. UK police raid home, seize devices of electronic intifadas. Asa Winstanley. British counterterrorism police on Thursday raided the home and seized the several electronic devices belonging to Electronic Intifada's Associated Director, Asa Winstanley, who used to be a Labour guy back in the day, of course. You also have people like Kneecap, Mohara from Kneecap, also getting slapped with a fucking terrorism designation. An officer conducting Thursday's raid informed Winstanley that the investigation was connected with the journalist's social media post. Attempts to reach the Metropolitan Police Service for comment for the story has been unsuccessful. Although his devices were seized, Winstanley was not arrested and has not been charged with any offense. He's active on several social media platforms. Encouragement of terrorism. That's what they said. Animals, all of them.
And does not make it humanitarian. I applaud the CEO of the Gaza Humanitarian, so-called Humanitarian Foundation for standing down and listening to the concerns and the issues that we had raised. We don't need these two systems to work in parallel. We need the aid that is on the border, the several thousand trucks of aid that is on the border. And I'll be accused of being a liar for saying that, I'm sure, but it is there. Believe me, we need to be allowed to get that in. In 4 days during the ceasefire, my organization, UNRWA, we distributed food to 1 million people. That's what's needed for these people who are facing famine and starvation.
Sam Rose, going to have to end it there, but thank you very much for speaking to us.
We're left.
Norman Finkelstein versus Benny Morris on Gaza, 39-minute debate, which I will be entertaining. But before we do that, there's more I must cover on this issue. One, here is Mehdi Hasan at Al Jazeera talking to the ex-Mossad head on Israel's medical aid to the Al-Nusra Front, okay, ISIS affiliates. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because people are asking me about Yasser Abu Shabab, okay? Yasser Abu Shabab is also an ISIS affiliate and a gang leader. However, now, Yasser Abu Shabab, despite being an ISIS affiliate and a fucking drug dealer and a gang leader, is now a part of the Palestinian Authority, an Israel-backed coalition force that is seemingly offering protection to the aid distribution. Yes, Al-Nusra is the group that Jelani was affiliated with, the Al-Nusra Front, or Al-Qaeda and ISIS, yes. Or Al-Qaeda in Syria.
But to speak up.
It's a branch. It's a branch. It's all the same shit. Al-Nusra is the Syrian version.
These amputations, some are, many are burned.
Sorry, hold on. This is what I was going to show you.
Levy, what outcome do you think the Israeli government wants to see in Syria? A victory for Assad or a victory for the rebels? Or is this Syrian civil war dragging on actually the best of both worlds for Israel because it neutralizes a threat on the country's border, as some would say it's useful, and it distracts attention from the Palestinian problem?
First of all, 6 successive Israeli prime ministers tried to get peace with Syria. 6 of them. And none of them was able to do this. Syria is the key to peace in the Middle East. It has always been Syria and not any other country. Secondly, I want to say very clearly that the problem in Syria today is not the Syrians. It's the external involvement in Syria.
On both sides or one side?
The Syrians entered a civil war. And within the last few years, at least 3 foreign elements have entered Syria. One was the Hezbollah, and Assad tried, with the help of the Hezbollah, to overcome the opposition, and the Hezbollah failed. Secondly, the Iranians came in, and they failed. They failed dismally. And then the Russians had to come in because the Iranians had failed, and the Russians came in, and they
would all say foreign fighters came in on the other side.
Foreign fighters are foreign fighters, but the Hezbollah had nothing to do there. The Iranians had nothing to do there. And I think the Russian presence is not contributing even to Russian
So to deal with my question, what does Israel, in your view, want to see as the outcome in Syria? Assad staying or Assad going? A victory for the rebels or the victory for the government?
I think,
or neither.
I think
perpetuation of war.
What Israel would like to see would be an outcome where an independent Syria, independent from foreign intervention, was left to its own and was able to chart its course.
So an independent Syria with Assad in control would be fine, as long as it was.
I didn't say in control. I'd say an independent Syria in the confines of the Syrian borders would be able to chart a policy of, shall we say, of peace and of acceptance with its neighbors.
It's a wonderful description. I'm sure many people would support it. You're not actually answering the question. With Assad in charge or the rebels in charge?
Whoever is in charge.
So Israel doesn't have a view, is your answer?
Whoever is in charge and is willing to follow such a policy.
So to be clear, Israel does not have a preference between the rebels and Assad. It's whoever sticks to this description.
I think we have no preference.
Okay, you say no preference. There have been reports.
This was in 2016, chat.
Israel's been treating wounded Syrian rebel fighters in its hospitals on the border, including fighters from Nusra Front, which is, of course, the Al-Qaeda proxy in Syria. Do those reports worry you that Israel's helping wounded Al-Qaeda-aligned fighters?
As I said before, in a different context, it's always useful also to deal with your enemies in a humane way. And I think...
Dude, saying that is so crazy. Saying that is so crazy because, like, obviously, even at this point, like, they're not dealing with their enemies, Hamas, in a humane way. They are not offering medical treatment to Hamas, brother. Oh, no. Oh, hell no. Because ISIS is not an enemy to Israel. That's the whole point. Okay? ISIS is not an enemy to Israel. It is a collaborator to Israel. And here it is. Here is how wonderful ISIS collaborators look like for Israel. On Monday, a Hamas security unit called SAM of the Hamas-run Interior Ministry killed at least 20 gang members who attempted to loot trucks loaded with humanitarian aid in a complicated military operation carried out in eastern parts of Khan Yunis and Rafah in the south of Gaza. Speaking to the New Arab, a security source in the ministry who preferred not to be named said, "We carried out the military operation against the thieves gang in cooperation with tribal committees in Rafah and Khan Yunis. We succeeded in killing a number of them who contributed to the starvation of our people by stealing aid and selling it at exorbitant prices. what Israel claims Hamas is doing, ironically enough. The source claimed that Gaza security services monitored communications between these gangs and the Israeli army forces that direct their tasks and provide them with security cover. On Monday, Washington reports said gangs looting Gaza aid are operating in areas under Israeli control, led by criminal elements with a history of drug smuggling and others who were involved in the Islamic State group ISIS, according to Palestinian journalists. Aid deliveries to Gaza are currently at a critical juncture due to the increased looting. Two of the gang leaders, one a drug trafficker and the other previously associated with ISIS, appear to be orchestrating the largest and most active looting operations of aid convoys bound for Gaza. The two leaders, Yasser Abu Shabab and Shadi al-Sufi, who were previously sought by Hamas security forces before the war, appear to be now working alongside hundreds of thieves under the protection of Israeli occupation forces in areas near the Kerem Shalom crossing, the primary entry point for the convoys. What they're doing in the fucking crossing, by the way, and this is from 19th of November, 2024. 19th of November, 2024. 19th, I need you to understand, this is from the 19th of November, 2024. Okay? The timing of this is from the end of 2024. This has been ongoing. Now, that collaboration, that cooperation is official. Okay? That cooperation now is official. There it is. And they now branded themselves a counterterrorism apparatus. And they have a headquarters in the Jargon Palace in Rafah under the protection of the Israeli army and aircraft. They released photos this morning from the aid distribution center in Rafah. The photos, without showing the face of the individuals, were taken to promote the site and claim that Gazans have begun arriving to receive aid. Shadi al-Sofi, a wanted murderer and son of an informant, collaborator with Israel, Yasser Abu Shabab, a drug dealer, are the main warlords responsible for looting most aid under IDF protection. They form gangs of over 200 armed criminals and establish a military-like compound per the UN in an empty death zone, fully under IDF control, where they looted only this Saturday night about 100 aid trucks at once. This way, Israel can absolve itself of responsibility for its deliberate starvation policy in Gaza and say, look, we're letting aid in. It's Hamas' fault that food doesn't reach the people. IDF soldiers fire at those gang members as they loot aid right in front of Israeli tanks. IDF soldiers never, fire at those gang members as they loot aid right in front of the Israeli tanks and troops in a closed military zone that no Gazan is allowed into. The IDF only fires at local policemen whenever they try to prevent the looting. This is also true. Yasser Abu Shabab was arrested by Gaza's local police multiple times in the past for drug smuggling and trading, which is often facilitated by ISIS groups in Sinai. Hamas militants attempted to eliminate him yesterday in an attack that killed 11 of his gang, including his brother and partner Fatih and the gang's accountant. 30 others were wounded. This is entirely backed by the Israeli forces, okay? The Israeli occupying force backs these fucking assholes. Shadi al-Safi murdered in 2020 Jabr al-Kik, a PFLP member whom Israel had sentenced to life and imprisonment for 15 years for killing al-Safi's father during the first intifada for spying on Palestinians for Israel. Okay? The ISIS affiliate Shadi al-Safi in 2020 murdered Jabr al-Kik, a PFLP, Popular Front for the PFLP is what it means. Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine member, okay, whom Israel had sentenced to life and imprisonment for 15 years for killing al-Safi's father during the first intifada for spying on Palestinians for Israel. PFLP guy kills a collaborator who's spying on Palestinians, and then the ISIS affiliate turns around and kills him. The ISIS affiliate is his son. Al-Safi was convicted in a Gazan court, and local police captured him in a special operation in late 2020 before he broke out of prison with the help of ISIS-linked militants and was smuggled out of Gaza to Sinai, then reportedly to Israel's Negev. He returned to Gaza with the IDF ground invasion, where he now co-leads the criminal gangs that loot, aid, and sabotage humanitarian work under IDF protection. This is what Yahya Sinwar started his career doing? Yes. Yahya Sinwar's job, his role in Gaza, for the record, a lot of people will say, like, Yahya Sinwar was a fucking brutal guy. The reason why he was in prison and what his role was within Hamas was to root out guys like Shadi al-Sofi and torture and then execute them. That was what his role was. He was a very brutal man. His role was rooting out collaborators with the Israeli government that was spying on Palestinians. Don't cleanse Hamas, please. What? Cleans Hamas? What? I don't even know what that was. I think Brianna Wu might be the dumbest propagandist ever deployed on behalf of any cause. Quick question. What language was spoken here before the 7th century Islamic conquest? Was it Hebrew or was it Arabic? I know facts aren't Free Palestine's thing, but it was the Jews' land historically, and it's their land today. That's why Israel's the most successful decolonialist project in human history. Chat already is giving the answer. It was Aramaic or Greek. That was the most commonly spoken language in the region. But yeah, here, this is the meme. Yeah, Netanyahu. Yeah, we know Jesus. He spoke Hebrew. Pope Francis. He spoke Aramaic. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying, we have a natural bond. Jesus was here in this land. He spoke Hebrew.
ישו היה פה בארץ הזאת. Gesù ha vissuto qui. דיבר עברית. parlava ebraico. ארמאיקו. דיבר ערבית, אבל ידע.
He spoke Aramaic, but he knew Hebrew. Bro, yeah, Jesus explaining to the Pope is so funny. God, Benjamin Netanyahu, one of the most arrogant, entitled douchebags on the fucking that has ever graced God's green earth, okay? It is crazy. This comment chain killing me? No. Aramaic was the main language. By then, Hebrew was a liturgical language. Is Aramaic closer to Hebrew or Arabic? All three are forms of the same language family and share many similarities. From what native speakers tell me, if you learn one, then there are others can be acquired easily. It's like English, Dutch, and German. No. Linguists and archaeologists here, yes. No. I'm sorry. Are you trying to educate me on basic facts right underneath an idiotic claim that I just made? No. By the way, it's especially stupid, okay? It is especially stupid because who gives a fuck? Even if literally the language spoken there was Hebrew, okay? Which it wasn't. But even if it was, oh my God, I don't give a shit. What is that? Why would that justify the ongoing ethnic cleansing of the indigenous population? You fucking psycho. What are you saying? Like, my attitude, call me woke, okay? But my attitude is, guess what? the current ethnic cleansing campaign that Israel is conducting does not justify an ethnic cleansing campaign of all of the Jews in Israel right now. Nothing justifies a genocide, even another genocide, okay? Like, I don't believe that. Does that mean that, like, Palestinians don't have a right to resist? Of course I'm not saying that. Of course Palestinians have a fucking right to defend themselves, both legally under international law and also morally. Like, they have the morally correct position. If they want to defend themselves, they have every right to do so. But this notion that, like, well, you know, they were there in before the 7th century Islamic conquest is so fucking stupid. Okay, who gives a shit? What do you mean? Suck my dick. Fuck you. What kind of dumb shit is this? What is this? Filming yourself harassing a random Palestinian person in public and then writing the caption as if you're the one in danger? Please be serious. Probably shouldn't behave like this without security, but I can't help it. What is this?
I'm Yisrael Chai! I'm Yisrael Chai! I'm Yisrael Chai!
Yo, I'm under attack. I'm under attack. I'm Israel Chai. Dude, why are all Israel supporters like this? It's so funny. Like, if that person turned around and said, fuck you, back to this person, okay, this would be the most anti-Semitic attack that has ever happened. Why does no one care about the Jews? Why does no one care about the safety and security of Jewish people living in the Upper East Side? This is danger, okay? I am at any given moment throughout the day, possibly within smelling distance, within a super close distance to potentially someone who's not only Palestinian or Arab. That's terrifying. I don't even want to think about it. But even someone who might be pro-Palestine, who might actually think that the Palestinians are human beings. We need to put an end to this. We need to purge, just like Israel, the greatest nation on the planet. Israel #1, no politics here. Just like they're doing a purge of all the Hamas terrorists. We have to do the Hamas terrorist purge here in the Upper East Side. Anti-Semitism. No politics here. You are anti-Semite. Why do you hate Israel? You don't like Israel? Nothing you like about Israel? Not one thing? Israel, small country. Israel, smallest country in region. Why you not like Israel? Go to Gaza. Go to Gaza. You are Hamas. Go to Gaza. It's so funny how much that like how much I hear this. Okay, Israel only democracy in the region. Your beeper is your beeper is beeping. Your beeper, I will kill you. You are terrorist.